Pastor Carl asked me, or told me that he wouldn't be in town today. And he said, what can we do? I said, well, I'll try and do something. Those of you that know me know that I'd much rather sing than I would talk. Although sometimes I talk too much. But what I wanted to do today was to give you kind of an overview of where I've come from. And you might find yourselves someplace in this too. The scripture that I've chosen is Romans 5, verses 6 through 8. You see, at just the right time, when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. Very rarely will anyone die for a righteous man, though for a good man someone might possibly dare to die. But God demonstrated his own love for us in this: while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. And I wanted to read from Matthew chapter 27, verses 27 through 29. Then the governor's soldiers took Jesus into the praetorium and gathered the whole company of soldiers around him. And they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him and twisted together a crown of thorns and set it on his head. And they put a staff in his right hand, and then they knelt in front of him and mocked him. "Hail, King of the Jews," they said. This first song is called "The Day He Wore My Crown." The city was Jerusalem. The time was long ago. The people called him Jesus. The crime was the love he showed. And I'm the one to blame. I caused all the pain. He gave himself the day he wore my crown. He brought me love that only he could give. I brought him cause to cry. And though he taught me how to live, I taught him how to die. And I'm the one to blame. I caused all the pain. He gave himself the day he wore my crown. He could have called his holy father and said, "Take me away, please take me away." He could have said, "I'm not guilty, and I'm not gonna stay. I'm not gonna pay." But he walked right through the gate and then on up the hill. And as he fell beneath the weight, he cried, "Father, not my will." And I'm the one to blame. I caused all the pain. He gave himself the day he wore a crown. Because you see, if we hadn't sinned, he wouldn't have had to die. But we did. And he did. But why did he have to die for us? Well, let me read Romans 3:23-25. For all have sinned, that's us, all of us, and fall short of the glory of God, and are justified freely by his grace, by God's grace, through the redemption that came by Jesus Christ. God presented him as a sacrifice of atonement through faith in his blood. And he did this to demonstrate his justice, because in his forbearance, he had left the sins committed before unpunished. So it was God's grace that accomplished this for us. Now you'd think, well, I'll live better. I can do better. But can we ever get there? No, and that's what this next song talks about. If I had all the riches this world has to give, all the comfort that it brings, never needing anything, I could search the whole earth over far and wide, trying to buy this precious love that was sent from God above. But it wouldn't be enough. No, it wouldn't be enough to buy one splinter of the tree that Jesus died on. And I couldn't pay the price for one single drop of blood that was shed for my salvation. If I had all the riches this world has to give, and I gave it all away, every penny to my name, to some beggar on life's dark and lonely streets, all this kindness found in me could not win eternity, and it wouldn't be enough, no, it wouldn't be enough to buy one splinter of the tree that Jesus died on. And I couldn't pay the price for one single drop of blood that was shed for my salvation. Oh, it wouldn't be enough, no, it wouldn't be enough to buy one splinter of the tree that Jesus died on. And I couldn't pay the price for one single drop of blood that was shed for my salvation. Romans 5:6. You see, at just the right time, while we were still powerless, Christ died for us. I couldn't earn that. Nothing I could do could earn God's grace. He gave it freely through his Son. Well, he died in my place. I knelt in great sorrow at Calvary's cross, ashamed of a lifetime of failure and loss, afraid of the judgment I knew I must face, and There I met Jesus who died in my place. He died in my place. He died in my place. My soul to unburden, my guilt to erase. Such boundless compassion, such love and such grace. This wonderful Jesus who died in my place. My sentence was just and my punishment earned. His laws I had broken, his love I had spurned. But in his great mercy he caused me to see his blood shed on Calvary brought pardon for me. He died in my place. He died in my place. My soul to unburden, my guilt to erase. Such boundless compassion, such love and such grace. This wonderful Jesus who died in my place. He wore my crown. He took on him the sins that I had committed and went to the cross and died for you and me. Romans 5:8, but God demonstrated his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. You know, when you think about that, it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing on God's part. He had us, me, on his mind. He had me on his mind long before creation was begun. He had me on his mind long before a bird had ever sung, and long before the earth was formed, long before the sky and sea, before the world was born, he thought of me, of me. He even knew my name long before I ever learned to breathe. He had me on his mind. He was thinking of me constantly, and long before I ever knew the plan God designed, he thought of me. He had me on his mind. Like I said, it wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. God had thought this out a long time ago. If you look at John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. And this song kind of goes along with the last one. Time after time I went searching for peace in some void. I was trying to blame all the ills on this world I was in. Surface relationships used me till I was done in. And all while someone was begging to free me from sin, he was there all the time. He was there. starting to rise, sharing each new day with him is a cup of fresh life. Oh, what I missed, he's been waiting right there all the time. He was there all the time. He was there all the time, waiting patiently in line. He was there all the time. Revelation chapter 3, verse 20, Jesus said, "Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and eat with that person and they with me." Did you notice what he says? If you knock, if you open the door. He knocks, he's knocking. He's been knocking. But when somebody knocks on our door, they don't open the door, we open the door. So we have to be the one that opens the door and lets him in. And that's a very important part of this process. He died on the cross for me and for you, but I have to accept that. I have to accept the fact that he died for me, not just somebody else, but for me. So when he's knocking, and he's knocking constantly, we have to open the door. The Savior is waiting to enter your heart. Why don't you let him come in? There's nothing in this world to keep you apart. What is your answer to him? Time after time he has waited before, and now he is waiting again to see if you're willing to open the door. Oh, how he wants to come in. You'll take one step toward the Savior, my friend. You'll find his arms open wide. Receive him and all of your darkness will end. Within your heart he'll abide. Time after time he has waited before, and now he is waiting again to see if you're willing to open the door. Oh, how he wants to come in. He did all of that for us. But as I said, it's up to us to accept that. To say, oh, that was nice. No. But to accept the fact that he died on that cross for you and for me. So we need to pay special attention to that and ask him to come into our lives. I've asked Jameson to help me with the last two songs here.
Sorry.
Is that working? Come on. We're going to sing, Lord, I Lift Your Name on High. And hopefully we've got some words for you. The projector seemed to have a glitch. see if we can. Electronics are great when they work.
Yes.
All right, let's sing it anyway. Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I love to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way, from the earth to the cross. I'm dead today, from the cross to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Lord, I lift your name on high. Sing it again. Lord, I lift your name on high. Lord, I love to sing your praises. I'm so glad you're in my life. I'm so glad you came to save us. You came from heaven to earth to show the way, from the earth to the cross. I'm dead today, from the cross to the grave, from the grave to the sky. Lord, I lift your name on high. And he has made me glad. I will enter his gates with thanksgiving in my heart.